Denver Mayor Michael Hancock and council member Robin Kneich released a proposal this week to raise the city's minimum wage to $15 an hour by 2021. Hancock and Kneich claim that this will directly benefit 100,000 workers in Denver. The Colorado Restaurant Association is leading the opposition to the proposal. Michael, this all becomes possible because of a new state law. So now a city can make this kind of a point themselves. Do you think this will go over in Denver?
I think it will. I think you look at what's happening in Denver in general, there's a lot of movement, progressive movement on a lot of issues. This is going to be one of them. I think in a lot of ways they're trying to score political points. You look at what's happening. You have Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren up there saying we need to raise the minimum wage, and then you have localities running with that. But I think there's basic economics that you run into too. There is some kind of cost to raising the minimum wage. Either some people are going to have to get fired. There might be a decrease in employee benefits. It could just be passed on to us, which it will be as consumers. And then, the prices for restaurant food ends up being like it is at the airport or at a baseball game, and people don't want to deal with that, and so they stay out of the city and go other places. So I think there are economic consequences. I think that needs to be studied more. The CBO nationally came out with a study. If we raised it to $15 across the country, the impact it would have. It would raise wages for some people, but close to 1 million people, or a little over 1 million, would be out of work. And so I think the city needs to look very seriously at this before making any kind of move to $15.
Eric, do you see any political ramifications? Obviously, Mayor Hancock is in his third and last term, but I guess between other politicians having to tackle this, do you see this becoming a greater political fight in 2020?
Probably not. I mean, in Denver, I know of no proposal in Denver that is lined with good intentions and liberal thought that doesn't fly and that doesn't advance you politically. So I would assume this probably, as Michael indicated, probably goes through in Denver. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a good idea. The laws of marketplaces will ultimately take hold. We've seen what's happened in Seattle, where they passed a minimum wage. It's now 12, but it's on its way up to 15, and then north of 15. And in fast food establishments and other, there's been a cutback in hours of employee hours of 6 to 7%. So yes, they're making more per hour, but they're working fewer hours. There's also a movement afoot nationally, particularly in the restaurant industry. It's what we're going to see in this country over the next 10 years. AI, artificial intelligence. In the case of robots, in the case of ordering by kiosks instead of through employees. If you're a business person, you're going to look to cut costs. And if government's going to mandate increased costs, the market will find ways to cope with this and will find ways around it. Good intentions are wonderful, but they usually have unintended consequences, and that is the story of the minimum wage.
Natasha, 5280 writes a lot about businesses in Denver. Do you think there's a bigger fight against this that the mayor and Councilwoman Kneich understand?
I think they're probably pretty aware that there's going to be a lot of discussion about this, and we're going to have some time to do that. This will go before council probably in November. I think it's important to just note that there's never a good time to raise wages, probably from a business perspective. I mean, who wants to take that on? But we're living in a metro where the cost of living has grown exponentially, whether that's housing, whether that's food, whether that's just the cost of getting to and from their work, whether you're taking a car or taking RTD. So when you look at that as a politician, I could see that they're hearing from their constituents that it's just hard to afford to live in this city, and this is something that they could actually affect. Now, if you pull out your calculator and actually do the math, $15 an hour, or a little bit more than that, isn't a lot. It isn't a lot to be able to live in the city, to work in the city, and to raise kids, have additional members in your household, let alone if somebody gets sick. So I'm not saying that 15 is a magic number, and I don't want to, there's certainly people who live in the city on less than that. But it's an interesting question to ask if we want to be a metro who does better than that. And if Denver did pass this, we would join about a dozen or so other cities around the country that are looking at similar increases. So lots to discuss here, lots to parse out, and it's not a magic solution to fix our affordable housing crisis, but it is a tool to move towards that.
Patty, businesses don't pay for extra costs out of the goodness of their heart. They're usually passed along, or there's labor cuts, just as Mike was talking about. Is Denver about to become more expensive?
Well, of course. Enjoy your $20 hamburger. This is reminding me of the carbon tax proposal that came forward sounds good in theory, but was really going to hit smaller businesses hard. And this is the same thing with the restaurants. It gets pretty technical on how certain positions are exempt and how tips are shared. Clearly, Robin Kneich and Michael Hancock didn't really take that into account when they made this proposal. Ed Sealover, who's sometimes at this table, did a great job kind of very quickly pulling it out and saying this might not even be legal the way it was done. I can see that the mayor and Robin Kneich will have to sit down with the Colorado Restaurant Association because their points are really good. Legally, they need to work out this tipping law to make it even equitable, even if this minimum wage thing goes through with their front of the house and back of the house employees. But when you look at how many people are employed in restaurants in this town and how the restaurants really contribute to quality of life in Denver, I think the restaurants will have a lot of sympathy on their side.